To open the lamps, the simplest way is tip them upside down. You might get some drain off of excess fuel, as in this one. So probably wise to drain them off first. Usually when you're opening, the fuel will have burnt off. Twist the vessel round, making sure the lock flap is out of the way. Lamp down, and there you go. You have one vessel, and what we're going to do is take the wick out. So make sure there's a thumb screw underneath. Turn that. It will often be in the up position. As you can see, it's going up. You want to turn it clockwise so it's down in the lowest position. Okay, screwdriver. Be careful because the brass tube is quite soft, so you want to avoid getting nicks and damaging it because it will cause the wick to catch and make it difficult for you. Just gently put it in and ease it up. If it's damp with paraffin, they usually come out quite easily. There you go. That's the trimming wick. There is a permanent wick in the bottom. You do not want to touch that, I promise you. So, to replace the wick, discard that. Get a length of wick and your scissors. As you can see, it's only relatively short, but the best way of fitting them is cut it longer, so maybe 2 inches like that. Cut through, trying to not expand it too much. To get it to go in easily, the best way is just soak the end slightly from the wick. Fill a hole with paraffin, and of course we've lost that paraffin now, so let's just put a bit on. It just acts as lubrication. Don't wet it with your mouth, which sometimes I do by mistake because it causes it to go out. Then you want to twist it round so you slowly enter it into the tube. It's a bit fiddly, but persevere and you'll get there. When you've got it so far in, just ease it in gently. What you need, once you've got all the bits in, just push it in so it'll go down in the tube. And what you want to do is make sure it goes down quite firmly, because it needs to butt up against the permanent wick, which is below it in this tube. You can usually tell, because if it's paraffin down there, you'll start to see it oozing up into. There you go. You can see it going down now. Once you've got it over that initial part, it should then be firmly butted up against the bottom wick. The fuel only comes up by capillary action, so if you don't do that and you get any kind of gap, it will just go out. So if you're still with me, now what you want to do is wind the wick tube up to its highest position. As you can see, I'm turning the thumb screw anti-clockwise now, and it will get to the point where it will just come to the top of the screw, as you can see. Leave it there. Now what you want to do is trim the excess wick off, and you want to do it to about there, just below the open part of the wick, and use almost slightly saw with the scissors, because you want to avoid as much loose wick as possible, because all it does is burn, cause things to clog up. Once you've got there, just gently trim off the excess, because you don't actually need it. Try not to cut your fingers like me. blow the excess wick out of the way. Now this one has been fueled overnight, but we'll top it up again now. And if you see, we're putting the fuel in there. This is filled with felt pads, so the idea is to get the felt pads absolutely full, which takes about 125 millilitres, which is the paraffin in the bottle. Don't use anything other than decent household paraffin, because if you get oil and different constituents in it, it can block the wick. So top it up. You will get some excess paraffin around, but that's inevitable. And just dip it in, and you want to see it come up to the top. Now this one says been fueled overnight, so there shouldn't be, but you can see bubbles now coming up. You want to blow those away and keep topping it up until you're absolutely at the top there. Now normally what we would do is drain that off into your hand plastic sandwich box, which is here. Because we don't want liquid fuel hanging around, but if you leave them soaking overnight, that will usually disappear into the felts, and then any excess, just pour it off like that. Because it's a bit like racing car and motor racing bike tanks. They have extra safe material in, so the petrol tank doesn't become a bomb. So you don't need the excess fuel. You should by now see the wick starting to change colour as the paraffin soaks into it. Put them out of the way. I feel like Blue Peter. I'm going to get a squeegee bottle out in a minute and a cornflake packet. And to actually, for the light to light, you want to turn the wick back to its fullest position. And just to give you an example, I don't want to burn this wick too long because it's coming to you like this. There you go. And then turn it down, so basically turn it up, I should say, the tube. The brass tube will come up and it will reduce the exposed area of wick, thus reducing the fuel supply to the flame. You're trying to avoid the wick burning off, but it will to a degree, because the wick is only acting as a transmission method for the fuel by capillary action, and eventually once you get it in the lamp you want a small permanent flame. If you can see, if you turn it all the way up, you will probably put it out, which if you need to is one way of actually doing it. Okay, it will smoke for a while, but that's okay. And that is how you change a wick. Practice makes perfect. Do it a few times. Let's just dib that out. Ideally, if you see a wick coking up like that, which it is, we want to get rid of that because it stops the fuel transferring. But what will happen as you get the flame inside the lamp, and it's the wick itself, this will burn down, come off, and then you will literally get the top of the tube, the wick virtually level with it, and the fuel vapour will be transmitting up, and then it will just basically be the fuel which is burning, not the wick. To put the lamp back together, just wipe off the excess fuel. It's, as I say, you're using paraffin, so it won't light with a spark, it will only light with the heat of a naked flame, so it's relatively safe, but obviously be careful with it. Tip the lamp upside down, so you remember you've got excess fuel in there, which will still come out. You have to have the fuel filler flap open in order to put the lamp up. If you put the tube up to its highest position, it will close the wick up, which will make it easier because you're going into quite a tight hole in there and you don't really want lots of burrs, so just try and enter it in gently. That's it. and then it's clockwise, standard thread, twist it back round, making the fuel lock flap stay out, and lock your lamp up. Flap over, and that's your lamp fueled and wicked. To light it, the best thing to use is the wooden tapers we've supplied. I'm actually running low on them, but basically if you go in any cafe or any coffee shop anywhere, that's all they are. For some reason our guys in Hull call them spills, but the beauty of them is they are a perfect taper for these, the position, and they don't burn too much, because if you get too much exhaust, you will actually reduce the amount of oxygen in there, which will cause the flame to go out, which is obviously what you wish to avoid. So if you light the taper, as you can see, they take a while, but that's what you want because you don't want too much exhaust. There, we have the taper lit. So normally you will be taking, in this case, a flame, often it's the Olympic flame at Olympus. You take the bung out, you just gently ease it out. It's just squashed in there under the pressure of the flame-proof tube, and just gradually ease it out because you don't want to damage the glass. And once it's out, go in, try and get rid of the excess if you can, and light. Blow out your taper, and gently, because as it goes in you can see the flame being pushed over by the air coming in from the side. The lamp's actually breathed from here and exhaust from here. So you want to bring the bung slowly up to it, because if you do it too quickly you can put it out. As you can see, the flame is now stabilised, which means the air is drawn from the top, not the side, and gradually just twist in, and you want the rubber tube, the black tube, wants to be about midway in position like that. Okay, then we lift up the lamp. It will start to get warm, but it's not that warm, and you can see the brass tube is in elevated position, and what you want to do now is bring it back down gradually, and you can see that's going one way, which will increase the flame, which is normally what we do for flame transfer. We will increase the size of the flame so it's more stable, and now we're going anti-clockwise and down, and you can see the flame reducing. Ideally, what you want for a long stable flame, and it will burn for up to 24 hours on one filling of fuel, is to keep that flame, and I'm struggling now because the sun's got really bright,